I got caught up in the comparison game with brands who were doing just as good as me and whose product was just as great, but the founder looked different than me. Why, if my skin is not brown, would I be able to raise funding right now? And that shit pissed me off. I'm not saying this is good because I made it. This is good. It's different. It needs to be here, and it's not. And I kid you not, the first year that I closed Trade Street and started Rouse Like House, I got an NBA player for my interior design business. Now, if I didn't tell you that was God, I mean, I'd be lying to you in your face.
You didn't have any
I
connections. It wasn't like this is somebody. Was it
I
just, how did that
left a
happen? Maybe
jam
that.
company. Of course, I had no connections, but it's just important to hear your story reflected in other people so that you know you're doing okay. You're doing better than okay. And if we don't do that, we can't succeed.
You have all these skills already within you, and sometimes you do have to kind of close one door so that that color can fill a new room.
Hey guys, this is Ashley Rouse. I am a creative multi hyphenate, and you're listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 446 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. Today, in the guest chair, we have Ashley Rouse. After building a nationally recognized brand, Ashley's returning to Dreams and Drive 8 years later. She was our episode 174 guest, and she's going to be sharing her raw truth about what it was like to close her baby, her business, Trade Street Jam Co. We're also going to be talking about embracing surrender and what it's like to step into new beginnings with her new creative agency, Rouse Like House. This is a heartfelt, inspiring conversation for anyone that is navigating change, exploring what it means to let go, and finding clarity and purpose in life's next chapter. I am really excited for you all to hear from Ashley because I don't feel like we talk about what it means to actually to end a journey, to close a dream, to build new dreams. 8 years ago, I don't think Ashley would have ever thought that we would be talking about why she had to close down her business, but I'm so grateful. I'm so humble that she chose Dreams and Drive to just open up and talk about all that goes into it, all that she's grieving, but also all that's coming out on the other side. So please buckle up. I'm excited for Ashley to be back in the guest chair. This was just a wonderful, humbling conversation, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think about it. Remember, we are Dreams and Drive on all social media platforms, so make sure you're following us, engage with this episode, engage with Ashley, let her know that you see her, let her know that her story is inspiring someone, because so many times I feel like we don't talk about the things. We sometimes think we just have to share the success reels. But I think if we had more honest conversations of what it means when we have to make hard decisions, but how good and how blessings can come out and be on the other side of those hard decisions, it's so important. All right, let's get into this episode with Ashley. Hi, Ashley. Welcome back to Dreams and Drive 8 years later. Can you imagine? It's been 8 years.
8 years later is wild.
8 years. So your first episode was episode 174, Choosing Faith Over Fear, and you chronicled how you built Trade Street Jam Company, right? And all that went into that. You were in a whole entire different part of your life. We were talking prior to getting started. You weren't a mother back then. You were still in New York City. Life was just so different. If you could, at a glance, just think back to who Ashley was in 2018 to who you are now, how would you explain or how would you answer that?
Jesus, I wouldn't answer that if someone asked. I'd be like, don't ask me that. I mean, that's like,
Why not?
I can't even, like, to your point, I'm so far from where I was then, and not far in the sense of better or worse or more or less successful, just as a human and evolution and maturity and as a woman. Like, I'm just so far from that. Um, but yeah, I mean, back then it was all about the business. If we're going to sum it up, let's say back then it was all about the business, and now it's all about my family.
Mm, going from business to family. let's talk about just those years, right? Let's if we dive deeper into the years between 2018, 2026. I know in 2020, I only know this, I'm not stalking you. I know this because
No,
I also
because
had a kid in
exactly.
2020, right? We both had pandemic
Yeah.
babies. I think your daughter was born in July or June. My
June.
s-
Yep.
my son was September, and I remember us just being online exchanging stories like, "Girl,
Hmm.
how you doing?
Yep.
How you
Yep.
surviving this?" That was a huge shift, right? 2020, and then you had another daughter 2022,
Yep.
right? And throughout this, you were in New York City, then you moved to Atlanta. So many changes were happening. Like, what's the thing that you remember about just the different things that were going on in your life as you were making that shift?
God, I don't know, chaos. I mean, it's what a chaotic time. Like, that's probably why I struggle to think back to 2018 because it's just like I blacked out with COVID, right? And then, like, to your point, having a COVID baby and the trauma that was, right? It was already a traumatic year for everyone, but then throw in motherhood and it's unfathomable. So, I just think it was a crazy time, but even you laying it out like that, it just reminds me of how much of a mover and shaker I am. Like, my God, I just go, baby. I'm like,
Can
I
I
just
remind
remember.
you? Let me remind you, only because I was on your Instagram, the Trade Street Jam Co. Instagram, and in 2025, you actually in July, you posted my real resume as a founder. I'm gonna read you. You made this, so you know what I'm gonna say, right? But I just want to read it aloud to you so that you can just kind of bask in the mover and shaker that you were. Because although there was chaos, Trade Street was moving, like you were making moves. You started out, you made and sold jam from your apartment, pitched live from Shark Tank, raised almost 1 million in funding, built a team from nothing, scaled up. I remember in that first interview, we were talking about, I think you had a fulfillment center out in New Jersey and it was always giving you problems and stuff.
Yep.
Scaled up, sold in stores nationwide, featured on TV shows and national news networks. I remember you were even here at Paramount. You were at Paramount CBS Mornings with Gail, right? Sitting down on her couch. And then it ends with burned out, walked away, started over. But I don't see that as a bad thing. We'll get to why I don't see that as a bad thing. But thinking back about all that you did, what does that make? How does that make you feel?
Well, I'm proud. I do feel like I went through so many stages of grief with closing that business. If somebody years ago had said like closing a business is like grieving, I would probably have laughed. Now that I've been through it, I'm like, wow, it is very much akin to grieving a loss of someone or something close to you. So I will say now I feel like I won't say I'm fully, recovered, I don't know, healed, but very much at the end stages of that grief. But hearing those things, I mean, honestly, I'm proud, but it also brings back, um, feelings, the feels, right? Trade Street is still very much like an open wound for me, right? Like I said, I'm at the end stages, so maybe the wound is like almost back to healing, and then I just have these like scars, right? But it's God, it was so much of my life. It was almost a decade that I ran it, and I've almost been alive 4 decades, so technically it's not that much of my life, right? But it's a huge piece of my adulthood. But hearing those things, I do remind myself to be extremely proud. I mean, God, I built something from nothing and ended up sitting on the couch with Gail. And even that experience, I remember we had been trying to get on Oprah's favorite things for years and years, and back and forth, and they would say yes, and they'd be like, well, at the last minute they said no, whatever, whatever. But Gail's the one that ends up choosing ultimately, not Oprah. And I remember sitting on that couch with her, and she's real cool. We were kind of like just kicking it. It was great. It was great. I didn't expect her
I've
to
seen
be
her a
as
few
cool
times.
as.
She is really
Oh,
cool.
she
She's
she was
dope.
wonderful. She was like making fun of my husband, like making jokes, like cutting up. It was great. And right before we left, I go, listen, we're trying to get on Oprah's favorite things. Like, what can you do? And she was like, oh, honey, like, kind of like everyone is, right? And then I threw out a name. I was like, oh, well, we've been emailing with so and so. And it was something like she heard that name and it was like, oh, this girl's like, she's serious. She's like in the process. She's not just like someone who's trying to be on this.
Yeah.
And she looks at me and she goes, I'll see what I can do. And that evening, maybe a few hours, maybe like 5 hours later, I got an email that was like, "You've been selected for Oprah's favorite things." And it was just a so wonderful, life-changing experience, even being able to do all that.
But it's all there's also a lesson of like you were putting in the work. You weren't just sitting around and waiting for things to happen. Trade Street was really something that you had been working on with your whole heart, whole body, whole mind. Um, the thing that I wonder though, and I'm saying this because I was reading in another interview that you'd done, you were talking about like there's some kind of weariness that can come with entrepreneurship, but at the same time, you know, it's your only path. Why is that? And then I want to talk about what it must have been like for you to say, I gotta close this down. Like knowing that something is your path, but this particular step just isn't gonna get you to where you as a person need to go.
Wow. I mean, that's such a heavy question, a loaded question. I think so. Yes, there's a weariness, right, with entrepreneurship because it is a hard job, a hard ass job. Can I say that on here?
Yeah, 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 girl.
Okay. It is a hard ass job. Like, and so I just think there is always this underlining like weariness, right? And but saying, when I said it's my only path, it's just because there's a point where you realize your purpose, right? Whether you have before, you haven't gotten there yet, there's a point where you realize your purpose. And I know that like being creative and doing my own thing is my purpose. And I also know that working in corporate America is not my purpose. So it was easy for me to say, this is my path. It is my only path. I'm very much a pivoter before I even that word, knew to even apply that word to my
Hmm.
life. So I know that like, even though I said entrepreneurship is my path, I knew that if something wasn't working, I was moving on to something else. I didn't know then it meant an entire business. But I mean, even within the business, if something wasn't working, I'd moved over here to something different. So um, that's why I said that. But I mean, you ask why or when I knew. Is that what you're asking?
I
Like
think
how
I
I
was
knew?
asking like you maybe the real question is how did you have the courage then to still stick with
Okay.
entrepreneurship although you had to make this big decision? Maybe the question is, how did you know that it was time to say goodbye?
Okay, so to answer the courage piece, like I said, this is my path. So the courage was kind of still just always there, right? Like there is no other option. Like I'm not going back to a quote unquote 9 to 5. So the courage just was there naturally because it was like there's no other choice.
Yeah.
Um, Knowing it was time to walk away, I think that was the hardest part. Oh God, that was the hardest part because what really did it for me was when my mental health started to really decline. And sorry, it's just oh God, it's such an emotional thing, an
I'm sorry.
emotional time.
We
No,
can
no,
take
no,
it.
it's
Take it as slow
no, no,
as you
no, no.
want.
I think it's so important to share this because as you know, I shared so much of this journey from beginning to the end and through the end. And I got so many people just like, thank you, and so it's so important for me to share this. Like that is part of my purpose is to share my
Hmm.
testimony. But I think, so entrepreneurship's always hard, right? The journey's always hard. You're always stressed or exhausted or burnout, and you're just like, you're doing the most. And I was used to that feeling, but this felt different. My mental health shifted to a place that felt very different from any place I had ever been before. That was the onset of, am I supposed to be doing this still? I didn't start off saying, like, oh, I don't like the way I feel. I got to shut this down. No, it was like, what is happening? How do we get through this? How do we push through this? What's on the other side of Trade Street? Like, so I spent a full year, full transparency. I was depressed and I didn't know what that looked like because I'd never been that before. I've never even used that term. If you know me well, you wouldn't even believe that. But yeah, it started with severe stress and anxiety. Uh, then it snowballed into severe burnout to the point where I couldn't sit at my computer. Or I'd sit there actually and stare at the computer, but couldn't answer any emails, couldn't do anything. I'd look up and hours had
Mm.
passed and I had done nothing but sit
Was
there.
it also because the business was like just going through challenging times as well, or were you just running it was cause also contributing?
It was 100% because the business was going through challenging times. I was running out of money. And as a business owner, feel like you're always running out of money. But you mentioned before, I had raised a good amount of money. And even, it's funny when I raised money, I didn't need the money. But then later on, as time progressed, I was like, oh, I'm glad I raised that money, right? But the money ran out, and I knew I needed to do another round of funding. So I'd done a seed round, I had done an additional round, but I needed to do another round of funding, and that was so damn hard. Like, so my initial investors, there was a bunch of them. Some of them double backed and gave like a little bit more, a small amount, but I needed a big amount, right? I needed a lump sum. So that maybe it was a years. It was a long time of literally meeting on Zoom calls with people, reintroducing myself, convincing them of why my business was worthy. That was exhausting to me. Like, this is a thing, right? Why do I have to get on a call 3 times a day, smile my biggest, put on a face of makeup, and like give you the reasons why I am worthy? Like, that annoyed me. And that's what raising is. But I had done it before
But
so many
also you're a black
times.
woman, and I would tell you
Okay, so
it's
yeah,
definitely
but
different when you
that's
look
what I
different as
mean. Like,
well.
that's what I mean. I'm glad you said that because, like, I want to be clear. I had done this before, and it's not about just like be strong and push through, or like I didn't want to like talk about my business. It's like low key, I'm that bitch already. Like, why do I have to go through this? And not only that, but I was treated and faced with so much disrespect and just doubt in ways that felt disrespectful, that is what drained me. I mean, I remember my lead investor was like, I'm going to set you up with this guy, right? And so he set me up with this guy. This guy was wonderful. He's like, let's have a meeting with me and another guy. So I'm like, these are all through my lead investor. Can't wait. This is going to like
Yeah.
work out. We go to like some fancy ass restaurant, like Four Seasons hotel bar or something. I get all dressed. It's like I'm so excited because I know this is going to turn into something. And when I tell you that guy just like belittled me and my business the entire time, to the point where after I had like a panic attack after, because I had just never been treated that way. And I also felt unprepared because, of the connections, right? Because of the connections, and they were black. So I just felt
Ooh.
like I was very unprepared. Like, if they weren't black and they weren't through connections that I had had in a network, maybe I would have been more prepared. But I just was like, it's like, I knew this was in the bag. They were going to love me, love the business. And it wasn't the case at all. And I mean, I remember that being just one of the final straws. So to answer your original question, a lot of it started with the final stages of trying to raise money and being turned down, right? Getting all these no's and really realizing that I am not successful at raising this, third round of funding. And without it, my business cannot survive.
And with that, you said it's time. I've seen this happen when a lot of people announce, like you've probably seen recently, beauty founders who announce that they're closing. And then that's when you get all the influx of, girl, how can we help? Right? What can we do?
Yeah,
What can
that
we,
came. That came,
how was
but
it like to navigate that? Because I know it must be frustrating where it's like, it's too late, guys. Like, you guys can't convince
oh
me this is
God.
happening already.
Because when you get to a point where you need, like, I needed probably $1 million and I would have been able to keep going, right? And that's actually not a lot in the world of funding.
Yeah.
But so yes, I let everybody know like this is what's happening in Trade Street. We're going to shut down. Yes, I got a bunch of influxes, right? Over a few different months. I got influxes of things and collaborations that happened, and even the Gail King thing came after that, as
Yeah.
like this kind of influx of things. But in my heart, it was over. I just couldn't bring my lips to say it, but it was all too late. Like, look, Gail King was amazing. Yeah, we made like 100 grand or something. I don't know, like in revenue after it, but maybe it wasn't 100. I'm probably gassing at it a little bit, but it was. I think it was close to 50. Um, just off of sales, like just from being on TV. And then we
Yeah.
were on ABC News, like with what's the evening? My mom loves him, David Muir. We were on
Okay.
the news with him in the evening. I mean, like, so we probably between the two, we got 100 grand in revenue, but you still got to talk about the POs we owed, right? And the manufacturers we owed and all
Since
these
running a
things.
CPG business is very
It's no
capital
joke.
intensive. Like
It's
it's
a
not,
oh my God,
the
it's an
margins
inventory
on that are
business.
crazy.
Exactly. So, I can tell you I made all that, and some people will hear that and be like, well, sis, how come you didn't make it then? Right. But then
She
other
must
people
be
will hear that.
mismanaging her funds or she
Right,
must
right.
something.
But then, like, some other business owners will hear that and be like, girl, that probably didn't even get you far at all. Like, and I'm like, exactly. So yeah, I did get this like influx, but I think so once I realized I couldn't raise money, then the year started. I'll call it the year. For me, it was literally a year. It was 2023. Once I realized I couldn't raise, that's when January hit and it was the beginning of a new year. And I realized I don't know what's going to happen with this business because I spent all of 2022 trying to raise what's going to happen. I didn't know at the beginning of the year I'd shut it down, but I knew that I felt this sunkenness, this like just like dark, heavy feeling of like, I don't know what to do. I have exhausted all efforts. I don't know what to do anymore. And I spent an entire year in that place of not trying to give up on the business, but knowing that at this point it wasn't even giving up. I can't do this anymore.
What helped you get out of that place?
Jesus Christ. Like, girl, like for real, for real. I talk about this in full transparency because it's very important, right? I literally spent a year depressed and I just didn't know what it was. I didn't call it that throughout the year. I called it severe burnout. I called it severe anxiety. But I mean, I would spend hours on the couch sleeping during the day.
I can only imagine while being a mom, having
Well,
two kids at this point, right?
right. So I would sleep. I'd spend the mornings like basically I did do my like workout regimen, which somehow by the grace of God, he allowed me to stay physically healthy during this time because nothing
Yeah.
else, I couldn't do anything else. After that, I'd sit at the computer for a few hours, do nothing. Then I'd lay on the couch and sleep for a few hours. And then I'd pick myself back up
What
at
time is
5
it? Pick up.
p.m. At 5 p.m., go pick up my children and make sure that I showed up for them and put on the mommy face and just really not let them understand that mommy is not okay. And I did that for a year, right? Towards the end of the year, God had put the word surrender on my heart. And I didn't, I was like, surrender to what? So, like, what do you like surrender the business? Like, I just didn't understand. But yeah, surrender the business. I had talked to a lot of people throughout the year who were like, sis, why don't you get on antidepressants, right? I mean, you can probably speak to this. You know how Black women are, like Black
Mm.
people. Like, I'm like, I don't need that.
Like,
Like,
I
I don't
don't need
need
that
that.
medication.
Yeah,
What
I
they,
was like, I
you
don't
can't
need
trust it.
that.
You know,
You
that's
can't
what.
trust it. I'm like, well, how's it gonna make me feel? Like, I'd rather feel the feelings. Like, right? So all year, when I tell you, so many people I knew, my husband's family, like cousins, like friends, random people would be like, "Oh, have you tried this?" Like everyone was like saying it, and I'm like, "They're crazy. I'm not getting on it, right?" So when he put the word surrender in my heart, and I kept asking him, "What do you mean?" I woke up one day and I was like, "Oh, surrender to the medication." So I went to the doctor, I asked about the medication. I got on the medication. I only ended up being on it for about maybe 2 months because, I was ready to get off of it as soon. But I do think it helped. I think it between that and just God healing my heart, I think, and that's why I say God, because that medication doesn't, you don't just take it 2 months and get off of it. That's not actually how
Yeah.
it works. So that's why I don't really credit the medication much. I
But it was
credit
a
more.
step, right? It was a
Yeah, it was
step.
this. I actually think it was just God seeing that I was being obedient to him in saying surrender. And he was like, now she's listening. And then he was able to just put this like healing on my heart and on my life. He didn't even care about the medication. You know what I'm saying? It was literally about obedience and like just surrendering. And so not only the business, but to him and to everything. And again, the reason why I say it wasn't the medication, because this happened at the very end of the year. And literally the next year came, like January, I started feeling better. by April, I took a birthday trip to Arizona. My husband had to go to work. He's like, "Do you want to come along?" I was like, "Oh, it's my birthday. Yeah, we'll do a thing." Went to Arizona and literally had an epiphany, an awakening. I don't know what you call it, but I get to Arizona. I'm out there. My cousin happened to be out there. I met up with her and I literally had this conversation with her, go back to the hotel room, build an entire website for a business I had never planned to create, built a whole website and a logo and everything, and came back and was now the owner of Rouse Like House, Creative House, which is a creative agency where I mentor all the business owners and brands that I have discussed trade tree with for all these years, right?
Yeah.
Now I mentor and coach and consult with them. I do marketing and brand building and design for them, graphic design. So I mean, I'm now using all those years experience. And I think again, this is why God did it and put this healing was because I was like, I've done this for 10 years. What am I about to do?
I was gonna pause you right there because beyond Trade Street, right? You were so much more than just a founder. You were a business builder, you were an entrepreneur, you were a visionary, you were a storyteller, you were building all these skills in the background that I think sometimes like we as dream drivers can get caught in on like I'm only this one thing, but wait, you are actually so much more. And that epiphany was really even just your eyes opening. Like once you surrendered, like you said, it was your eyes opening to all the colors that had been surrounding you from day one that maybe you didn't realize were yours to tap into, right? Like the interior decorating or just the marketing. Like I've always seen like your stuff stood out because it was dope. And that was all from you, right? Like all that Trade Street was you. And I don't know, I just see it as like a testament to you have all these skills already within you. And sometimes you do have to kind of close one door so that that color can fill a new room and
Yeah,
evolve.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's easier said than done, right, from the outside, because,
Yeah.
I appreciate what you say about Trade Street. Thank you. I have heard that many times over many
Hmm.
years. You would think that would be enough to say, sis, you're the bomb. Like you got this, right? And unfortunately it wasn't. It
For
it
you,
wasn't.
like you
Yeah,
didn't
for
feel like
me.
that? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh God, no, no. Like, I mean, I wasn't stupid. I wasn't like, you're nothing. Like you, what have you done? Like, no. I mean, I never got down on myself, which I'm also grateful for. And I also credit to God because during that time, that year of depression, I could have been very much beating myself up. You didn't do enough. You weren't there. It was never that. It was actually, you've done so much. What more could you possibly do? You know what I mean? And there's a difference, right? So I never like took the, like this inwardly shame or anything like that. I had actually given that business so much. I mean, I feel like I gave it, I always say it's, I don't know, like a kid or like it was like a relationship. But I mean, I had children through this business, right? I did it through a worldwide pandemic. I birthed two children and went through that. I just did so much through that business. So I feel like that business owed me, right? I feel like that
Yeah.
business owed me more than the depression that I was feeling. And so that's a good way to explain it. I think I was more like down and out and upset because I just knew this business was going to have this wonderful exit and make me rich and build this brand of Ashley Rouse. And ironically, this brand is already on the train going and leaving the station and moving on. But I thought without it, how can I build a brand? So you're supposed to make me money, you're supposed to make me a brand. And instead, I'm sitting here depressed, trying to pretend for my children. Like the audacity, what I gave you.
I was like, when I think about that, and I compare this to like the feelings I feel about, like you mentioned, you're still doing Dreams and Drive in a good way. Like, I'm proud of you.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I'm still doing Dreams and Drive, and I'm not where I should be. And I think I saw this on Instagram where people were like, you need to reshift that you're not there yet. But I'm like, it's easy to say that, but you still are
Hmm.
in the idea of like, what's wrong with me? Or I've put in so much work. For you, you might think we have great quality. Like our stuff is one of the best gyms out there, but why? And I think also for me, you can get caught up in the comparison game. I don't know if like, like your competitors or like seeing people who may not have the best product but are doing more things. It's so easy to get caught up in that, and that chips away at your soul as well. I know for me it does. Still to this
No, it
day.
did. It did. I got caught up in the comparison game with brands who actually not brands who weren't doing as well or whose product wasn't good. Actually, brands who were doing just as good as me and whose product was just as great and it was niche and it was just really unique and different, but the founder looked different than me and they
Mm.
were doing well. And that's what I got caught up in was why, if my skin is not brown, would I be able to raise funding right now? And that shit pissed me off. Oh God. Oh God. Because my product was, I mean, you're saying it, right? So people who haven't
That
heard of
slow
it,
peach jam,
but like,
y'all. Can't get it no
baby,
more. But
baby, like when I tell you this was, I mean, for people who never had it, they won't know, but this was this was something different, something unique, and something that should be still out there and be making a splash in the world amongst food products. And so, with that being said, it was really hard because it was just like, I'm not saying this is good because I made it. This is good. It's different. It needs to be here, and it's not because I can't get money. But if I was white and had like this white people with hot sauce brand and they're getting, millions in funding and now their hot sauce and then their exit is like, 300 million. And it's like, I mean, I was doing that 10 years before you even came up with it. And you do it a year, a
yep.
year before launch and you launch and then you exit in a couple, like 2 more years. And now that was your 4-year journey. Congratulations. Like, so I spent so much time being a hater, like being a hater on these brands. And that
But do you
too,
feel like being a hater, like, do you feel like you were, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like, they deserve that? Like, I feel like there
no,
is,
no,
okay.
no, I wasn't an outward hater. They would never know I was a hater.
No, no, I mean in the
Um,
sense of like, I think all that you're feeling is validated. Like these are
mhm,
real feelings and these are
mhm.
real facts that happen, especially to women of color who have these great businesses who still are struggling to get the funding. Like, like Nicole Kane, right? She has her My Happy Flow. I love the business, but I also love how transparent she is. And she's been on the show before about how hard it is to run a product based, retail, internet based business as a Black female founder, especially when we might be the smartest, we might be the most adept, but that doesn't matter. And the idea that the systems out there may never be on our side.
Oh yeah, not in our generation. I mean, I'm hoping my kids will have it easier, maybe, but listen, I went to lunch with her just some months ago. Had never met her in person. Was a big fan of Nicole Bitchie back in the day.
Mm.
But man, she was great. We sat there for hours, baby. Our lives are
Mm.
so aligned in so many ways. Our stories are the same, not just
And she has
similar.
a
I mean,
big
our stories
faith
are the
story,
same.
like
Yeah,
grief
yeah.
story, faith
We
story.
talked a lot
Uh,
about it. We talked a lot about it, but I think after, funny enough, I felt more angry because Nicole Bitchie was a thing, baby. That was a thing, right? I mean, if you told me 10, 15 years ago that be sitting having lunch with Nicole Bitchie, I would have been like, wait, what? What are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
to be sitting here with her and she's telling me that she's struggling with so much hurt my heart even more than it was already hurt to hear another Black woman struggling with what I'm struggling with on another level. It just made it worse. You know what I mean? She's nothing to do with her, but that made me feel worse in the sense of this is never going to, I don't know, to what you said, is this going to ever get better? Now, I will say, once we had met, I had kind of moved on. So it was a
Mm.
different space, but it did bring back a lot of feelings. But that's where the surrender comes in too, because I spent a lot of time being angry and being confused and being sad about like, why isn't this going to work? Is this ever going to get better? Could there still be something here? And then once I was able to surrender and release those feelings, I was able to re put my energy into something else, basically, right? Redirect my energy into all the things you just mentioned that I have done. and that I can use and that it was experience. I haven't lost, right? And I think I spent so much time thinking I've lost. And once I was able to say, yeah, I lost a business, just a tangible business,
Yeah.
but nothing else did I lose. Then I was able to be like, oh, okay, I'm back on track to building this brand of Ashley Rouse.
Because could part two, or not even part two, maybe let's call it to keep in mind with the like dreams and drive metaphor, maybe it's stop two, right? Like exit one was
Mm,
Trade Street. Now
mm-hmm.
you have exit
Exactly.
two is now Rouse Like House, right? Where this creative agency, you're now able to explore new passions, new challenges, and it's still your purpose. It's still part of your purpose.
Mhm.
What kind of epiphanies were you seeing with this new evolution and how maybe this is where you're supposed to be going?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it. You hit the nail on the head. I got to a point where I was like, oh, that was just the first stop or the first few chapters. And it's so funny to think of how big God is, right? And it's like that the whole time he was like, that was never meant to be the whole thing.
Forever.
Yeah,
Maybe
he's
it's
like,
not.
you
Cars
thought,
don't
no,
run
I
forever, right?
yeah, no,
Mhm.
I 100% know that that's the case. Like, I
Yeah.
know that he was like, that was never meant to be forever. You got so caught up that you thought this was a forever thing. That was never what I had for you as a forever thing. So, I definitely consider myself like a kingdom-driven entrepreneur. So I've always had God in my business. And so I know that he wanted me to do trade street. It's not that he didn't want me to, it's just when it was time to close, that's what he wanted me to do. And it took me a while to understand and be okay with that. Once I was okay with that, then I was like, oh, you have all these other things. So now I'm able to realize that that was just, to your point, one exit, and I can kind of move on and use all those things. This may be the big thing, right? That I do. But I do know this is my purpose. My purpose has always been helping people, helping entrepreneurs, helping Black women. Um, and so I'm still doing that. And that's once I was able to bring it full circle, like, oh, you're still walking in your purpose, you
Yeah.
know? Now I'm helping so many. Do you know how many brands have reached out that we're like, we get on a consultation call and they're like, can I just say, I followed Trade Street for like 5 or 6 years and I loved everything you did. And the reason I reached out is because I want my marketing to look as good as yours, or I want my social, and
And there was a
it
time when
feels
you even were like, you couldn't even see just how great it
not
was
at
because
all.
you were in it.
Not at all. Not at all. Like, I mean, it's funny. We, with our good old fashioned lovers page, we just hit 10K and it's been going for like 6 months and it's just been like a little,
And imagine you
like,
had, I think Trade Street had like 30K when you
yeah, but I
closed
mean,
down.
I remember trying to get to 10K for like a year. Like, I had an intern who was like a social media manager for me, and we were posting all these videos and doing all these recipes and all these things that I thought were great and then were just received okay. Like, they were, yeah, people liked it, but I
Yeah.
mean, I'm like, this isn't going viral. This isn't doing a thing, right? And so, to your point, of course, I couldn't see that it was like great because it was like not producing the results I wanted at the time, which was like I wanted these followers, right? Which is so stupid, but that's what I thought was important
That's
at the
how we were
time.
measuring.
Yeah,
Metrics
that's
were
how we measure it.
important.
And it even to this day, it gives you a sort of clout, right? It gives you a
It
sort,
gives you that
people
like
look
little
at you.
validation, that blue
Yeah,
check
yeah.
matters.
People look at you, brands you want to work with, they're like, oh, this person has 20,000 followers. They must be a thing. Let's look a little closer. If you have 500, I can't say
Even
whether
if
they
you're
will
the
or
best,
not, but
you gotta
but
know somebody who
uh,
knows somebody who knows.
right, because they're not going to just look at that and be like, oh, they're great. Nobody has validated that they're great because there's only 500 people that have validated, right? So I say that to say I remember spending a year trying to get to 10K, posting all this content that was so great, right? But it never got there. And then like now, 6 months we've been posting and just like having fun, making cocktails, and
Let's
we're
dissect that a little
yeah.
bit because good old fashioned lovers, that's a page that you have with your husband, right? Where you explore. Tell us what it is and maybe talk to me about why you think just being settling, surrendering. Why do you think surrendering to just being authentic helped you grow in such a short amount of time?
Well, that's because that's what God wants us to do, right? That's
Mm.
as easy as that. Like, he wants us, me, to surrender to him. He wants us to use our God-given talents and gifts. Mine is being a creator in so many different ways. Mine is creativity. When I'm creating, and I know that because when I'm creating, I am most happy. And also when I'm creating, the fruit it produces is nine times out of 10, really great. It's really great. It
Mm.
surprises me at how great it is. People are like, you're so amazing in this or that, right? You hear it, but you hear it over and over. So you're like, are they right? Maybe it is kind of good.
Yeah.
Like, right. And so I've been able to say, no, this is a gift he gave me. And so
Can I
yeah,
stop you for 1 second, Ashley? I hate to do this, but I think it's
no.
so important. You said this is a gift that God gave me, and then you said this is really great. And I think it's important that you verbalize that because so many times we're scared to just say, I am good at this. I am
Oh
great
God.
at this.
Oh God.
This is my gift.
Hmm.
If we, and I'm saying this from like my own experience, we run from it. We run from what we
We
know
do.
we're supposed to
Why?
do.
God,
We
why do
run
we do
from
that?
it.
We do.
And just imagine if more people just started tapping into themselves and saying, like, you are great at this.
It
Don't
would
let
actually be
anyone.
scary. I think the competition would be so high that like it would be hard for us all to succeed, right? But like no, because people don't do that. To your point, they don't
Yeah.
do it. Like I even personally, I have just recently in the past like 2 years understood that creativity is my gift and my purpose, and I
And it's
can monetize,
valuable.
and it's valuable, and I can monetize that. And I have kind of grown up, probably our generation, honestly, grown up in a space where creativity, it's like when you like in Black families, you grow up and you're like, I want to be a rapper, I want to be a singer, and no parent takes you seriously because they're like, but you're going to get an education, right? And like, which is fine, it's true, but like the creative talents weren't always accepted and cultivated. They're more like, okay, but you need like a talent on paper, right? And so it's
Yeah.
just now that I've had this like epiphany where it's like, no, this is like I started following these pages that are all about like creators and the through line between God and your creativity. And I am like blown away because I'm like, that's me. Like, and it's like pouring into me. And I'm just now in a space where I'm accepting that like it is my job to create, right? So sometimes I'll spend hours like making a graphic or hours making a cocktail for social or hours looking at Pinterest for interior design. And it creeps in still. I'm like, so you just wasted 2 hours? You're just gonna waste 2 hours
No,
making a
no.
cocktail? And I have to be like, no, baby, that's not a waste. Because the fruit you'll produce from that. So you looked for 2 hours on Pinterest and now you built a deck. And I kid you not, the first year that I closed Trade Street and started Rouse Like House, I got an NBA player for my interior design business. Now, if I didn't tell you that was God, I mean, I'd be lying to you in your face.
You didn't have any
I
connections. It wasn't like this is somebody. Was it
I
just, how did that
left a
happen? Maybe
jam
that's,
company. Of course, I had no connections. I
you
left a
never
jam.
know.
Oh
NBA
my
players
gosh.
eat jam too.
Okay.
On a lot of bagels. I don't know.
Sure. Right. Right. Want some protein bagels? Listen, I I'm like, I'm gonna do this interior design as a part of Rouse Like House, right? Rouse Like House is a
Mm,
creative agency. So I was like, this is gonna house all the creative things I do. For once, I just want to be creative. And if it's
yeah.
weird to other people, if they're like, how did you make jam but you're an interior designer? Then I'll show you, right? But I do a lot of different things. And so one facet was interior design. I had done it for years here and there for like some friends and family, but I was like, let's create, marketing around it and branding and really have some type of collateral, some assets to show people and kind of start this
Mm,
going. And so I have a friend, my husband and I have a mutual friend. He works at a sports agency. And he said they sent out an email and said, hey, we're looking for an interior designer. If anybody knows one, like one of our basketball players needs an interior designer for his home. And so my friend like calls me and he's like, would you be interested in this? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Would I be interested? Yeah. And he's like, okay, send
you said
over.
yes, number one. You weren't
Okay,
like,
let's be
not me,
clear.
not
No,
me.
yeah, let's be clear because on the inside, so I say yes, right? And he's like, great, send over what you have. And I'm like, absolutely. And he's like, and they'll reach out if they're interested. I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. I hang up, I go, what I have? What do you think I had, Raina? What do you think I had?
The idea in your
The
head.
idea in my head. The idea in my head. And I mean, I had built a pretty website. I told you I built a website in
Yeah.
Arizona in April. So, this was like maybe June or something. And so I had a website and it had these pretty pictures of furniture and stuff from the internet. It looks really pretty.
Yeah.
But I put my head down, went to work, built an entire deck, built built this out, right? Built this out, send it over. It looked great. I'm like, they're not gonna pick me. I have no experience.
Mm.
I have some experience with friends and family, but I was like, put that down. It doesn't matter. Like, put it all down. I put it all down. They reach out like a day or two later and they're like, we'd love to have a call. We get on a call. They're wonderful. I put my best foot forward. Maybe there wasn't a lot of competition, but they were like he loved it and like let's move forward. So I helped design his spa, his gym, and this is a Chicago Bulls player, and
Mm.
right now I'm actually currently designing his entire basement. This is our third project together. So I say that to say, like, if you lean into what you
And
feel
aren't you
like
from
is
Chicago? I just want to say,
I
weren't you
am
originally?
from Chicago.
So
Like,
isn't it
look at
funny
it,
how
look at the
things
full
come like
circle
full circle?
because you have to surrender. You have to, first of all, you have to be quiet. Turn the shit off. Turn off the social. Turn off turn it off. Because I will say during that year where I was like super down and out, like I wasn't on a lot of things, right? So I was quiet. I did listen to a ton of praise music, watched a ton
Mm.
of sermons online. And so so even though I didn't feel like in my heart I was getting better, I was feeding myself nothing but the word and just like positivity and like shutting things out. And I think sometimes we need to just be quiet and not get the opinions of others and not get the opinions of like what's on TV and all this and just be quiet and like let our own thoughts because God has put the gift in our head and we just need some quiet to like let it come out. And that's what happened in Arizona. It was such a literal place of quiet, right? Out in the desert, peace, quiet. And my head just was like, this was here the whole time. But now you've quieted your thoughts and all this came out and look at what has come from it. And good old fashioned lovers, I mean, that was never planned. We literally had talked about for years, like when we'd go have a good old fashioned, we were like, oh, we should start a page one day and we'd laugh about it. Again, now I had the space in my heart and mind, had the capacity to process things. And I was like, oh, we should start this. Like June, we were on vacation. I was like, we should start this.
Mm.
We started, and now I'm getting brand partnerships and getting paid to create videos. It's very strange. I'm living
It's
out
not
my,
strange. It's intentional.
it
It's
is
intentional
intentional. It
design. But I get,
is.
I know why you said strange, but it's like when you think about it, like it makes sense.
It does
It
make
makes
sense.
sense.
It all makes sense to me when I do think about it. And my husband, he's so like wonderful and supportive. And he's just like, baby, this all makes sense.
How is
Every
he
bit
like
of
you being
it.
an influencer now? Because he was always behind the scenes.
Okay, so it's funny you say that, right? I feel like for me, I'm living out my lifelong dream of being an influencer. Like I've always told him, I'm like, I want to be an influencer. So what I'd laugh, but he'd be like, you are an influencer. He's like, what do you think Tracy was, right? So I never
Yeah.
considered myself as one, but I'm like, okay, I guess I was, but now I really am, right? And a content creator. But to your point, he is more behind the scenes. But he did agree to do this, right? I laid it all out. I went and chat. I had a whole plan. I was like, here's what I would love for this page to be. It was really just about having fun. Nothing super structured, like the calendar and the brand partnerships and stuff. That stuff came over time.
Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, I'll have fun and make these cocktails on video. And so that's what he does. I manage everything else for the brand, right? We have a brand sponsorship manager who like brings in the brands and kind of keeps an eye on things and growth and engagement. But I mean, I do a content calendar for us. I do the editing of the videos. So I'm still like, doing everything as like the manager of the page. And we joke, but he just shows up. But it's cool because that works for us. Like he has a full-time job. A lot of relationships that thrive, there's one full-time stable person, and then there's
And
one
then there's
that's
the
able to take
visionary.
the visionary that's able to take risks and do these like fun things and that we thrive in that environment. He does that, and I can just like take things, and he always says he that I'm what does he call me? His Amalfi Coast plan, which is so sweet. He always says he's like, you're the one that's going to make us rich. And
Yeah.
I mean, God, you need somebody pouring into you like that.
Yeah. You do. And talking about pouring into, as we wind down, there's two things I want to hit on is the power of network, right? And making sure that the relationships you have around you are also pouring into you. I want to shout out Courtney Futch, right? Well, Courtney Brimson now. She I don't know if you know, but we actually know each other from our college days. So we both were in the same like media program. And she was the person who partnered with me on my first Dreams and Drive dinner party back in 2019 before the pandemic. And we
Wow.
had all these when she was in Jersey City. We did a dinner party in her loft in Jersey City. And she's
Wow.
another person who I have to get her back on the show because she has her own transformational journey. But I've known just from seeing you guys online, I don't even know how you connected, but it's just so funny how there's so many communities and how we're all intersecting. And
Yeah.
she's now in Atlanta. And, she's also in the food space doing great things. And I think she's part of the people who pour into you, right? And giving you helping you behind the scenes as well. And you guys just kind of being creative minds. Love Courtney. She's such like a great spirit. I'm so inspired by all that she's doing. The question I have here is how important is it to also make sure those people around you and seeking out those relationships and those souls that will continue to feed into you? Because this is a hard, can be lonely journey sometimes. Even when you're starting something new, you kind of need that inspiration around you and you need those people to pour into you.
It's equally as important as anything else is. It's equally as important. You can, I don't know, of course, if people are spiritual or faithful, but you can read the Bible and stay in the word and right and stay in God's word. But that's not your physical, tangible everyday, right? You can read it
Yeah.
as much as you want, but as soon as you close that app or that book or whatever, and you stand up and you walk outside, I mean, just as easily as you took it in, you can forget it. And now there's a person standing in front of you, right? I say that because it's equally as important. So, whatever you have that you reach out to for peace and support spiritually, you need that in the physical as well, right? Because that's just reality. That's the reality of it. We're human. And so it's so important to have, like, I literally just told you my husband says I'm going to make us rich. I don't know if I ever would. Actually, plenty of times I'm like, I'm not doing well. This is not going to work. Like he's going to expect this and this is not going to work.
Hmm.
But he still says it. And it's still, when it hits right, I'm like gassed up. I'll go create
Hmm.
something crazy because I'm just like, I'm fired.
And
You
you
know what I
need
mean?
that. Like
Yeah, you
you
need
need
that. I
that.
get
With
fired
that
up
little
and I'm
hug from
like,
your daughters and they just see you doing what you're doing. Like my
are you
hugs from my
kidding me?
son, but they're just like, I love you, mommy. And I'm like, oh
Are
my
you
God.
kidding me? My
You
girls
just
just, they're
can't.
like, we want nails like you, mommy. We want to do, you sit at the computer and you work. We want to work too, mommy. Like, and I just, oh God, don't even get me started on that. But your community, I just want to say I started Trade Street with building community. And I didn't know I was intentionally doing it. I was sharing because it was cathartic and therapeutic to share. So I would get on stories and say, I'm headed to the manufacturer today. It's an hour away. I'm exhausted and I'm annoyed, but let's see what they have. And then like I'd be like, look at my trunk. There's 800 jams in here. Guess how many jams, right? I
A
put a poll.
bottle broke,
And there's these, yep, a bottle broke and that cost me $16. Like whatever. Like just like sharing all this stuff. And I didn't realize that it was building such a big community. But when I needed them, when I tell you this community poured back into me, I never, I mean, I guess I can't say never, but I remember never got negativity on Trade Street. I would get hundreds of DMs and people were just like, thank you. Thank you for talking about this. Nobody talks about this. Thank you for being so honest and genuine. Thank you for showing us what success looks like as a Black woman. I'm like, girl, what? What are you seeing? But
mm,
I'm like, but thank you. And that community saved me. There were times where I reached out and said, I have no idea how to do this. Like, has anyone ever done this? And people would write back and be like, oh, you need to use this and this. And I'd be like, oh my God, do you know you just saved my life? Like, literally, this was my community. And so I did. That also hurt when I lost Trade Street. I felt like I was losing a community. I know I was able to keep and convert a lot of people over, but I felt like I was losing my community. So I am in the process of building that back up. Courtney is one of those people who has helped me through that process. She's an absolute delight and ray of sunshine in my life. We were friends on Instagram for years through Trade Street, years. Moved here, found out she lived here and was like, do you want to actually like meet? And she was like, sure. And I was like, I guess I'll meet this girl I've known her for like
mm.
5 years on the internet. We meet and I like I
I
mean,
can
I
see
like,
y'all just clicking like
oh
this.
my God. I was like, I'm
From
in
the
love
way
with
you
you.
talk, the way
Oh
you
yeah.
see life, like
They're
everything.
so, oh gosh. I mean, we go to lunch and we're there for like 4 hours. My husband's like, I thought you were going to lunch. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I have to leave and get my kids. Like, she's just absolutely wonderful. But you need that. You need people that look like you, that understand what you're going through. And I think that's why it can be hard in business because it feels very lonely. And it can be lonely if you just let things go naturally, you will be lonely. But and it can be hard. I don't like people. I don't like networking. I don't like
Mm.
networking events, none of it. But it's just important to hear your story reflected in other people so that you know you're doing okay. You're doing better than okay. And if we don't do that, we can't succeed.
Uh, Talking about success, keys to success. I think we did this on our first episode. I forgot what you said back in 2018. Maybe I'll add a little snippet in the editing and just kind of go back to what you said 8 years ago. Keys to success in 2026. If you want to be a dream driver, right? What are the things that you think are so important for everyone who wants to be a dream driver to have in their toolkit before they hit the road?
Mm, protecting your peace, taking care of self, mental health, physical health, being careful what you put into your body, right? Not just food.
Mm,
Food's important, but social. We don't watch the news. I know it sounds crazy. People are like, why are you're stupid? You're not watching TV. I know I don't watch the news because it gives me anxiety. And then I can't send my kids to school because I think they're going to get shot at school just because I watch
yeah.
the news. So, watching what you put into your body, and just, finding something bigger to focus on. I think once you can relate to this, once I had kids, I was able to just like take a breath and be like, oh, there's something bigger here, something way more important. And now I'm just able to like, no matter what happens with work, I don't make any money this month. I'm like, oh, what are you even doing? And they come home and I look at them and I'm just like, oh, yeah, I get it. Life's good. God's here. Everything's good, So finding something bigger, I kind of lost myself in Trade Street a little bit, not in a terrible way, but just got very lost myself in it.
Yeah.
And now I'm able to see myself outside of it. And I think that's very important. Work is not the most important thing.
And it's like also the idea like we're planting seeds. And sometimes, like we know, seeds take a while to grow. And sometimes when you plant seeds, other things might grow in that same spot. And you're like, wait, how did they get some flat? How did a rose get here? There's like in my
Always.
backyard, I have a rose bush just coming out of this random spot in the corner. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, where did this come from? But
Yep.
someone had to plant the seed a while ago. And
Come
I
on.
think that's what I've been
Come on.
realizing so much is we're all on this evolutionary journey. I started Dreams and Drive in 2016. You started Chase Street in 2016. We are not the same people, and we're not supposed to be the
Mm-mm.
same people. Because if we were, we'd be like,
Hmm.
so what were you doing for 10
Yeah.
years,
What are
right? If
we
you're the
doing?
same
Yeah.
person. So I
Yeah.
think it's just a reminder to anyone, like, allow yourself to surrender. And I'll add to your words, Ashley, is like, allow yourself to evolve and accept it and be
Absolutely.
okay with it. That's what this whole journey is about. It's
Because
like the
nobody knows what
evolution.
they're doing, by the way, you just have to say that. Nobody knows what they're
Yeah.
doing. And I spent a lot of time looking at people thinking they knew what they're doing. And so I want people to remember it. Like my mom always says, like, don't walk in, don't judge me by the chapter you walked in on or something. Um, it's important not to judge people off their wins only because you have no
Yeah.
idea what they lost in their losing season, right? We always want to judge people in their winning season, how they get this, how they get that, but you have no idea what they have lost in their losing season, what they've gone through. And so, in social media, that's why it's like the devil because it's a highlight reel of everything. And so, I do think that's a really important one is just to understand that nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. I just have to say that. Do
We
you know what I mean?
yeah, we're all figuring it out.
We're
We are
all
all
figuring it
figuring it out.
out.
And who knows, 8 years from now, if I'm still doing Dreams and Drive, we'll have a part three of this conversation, and
Would love that.
who knows what that will be like. I just want to say thank you so much, Ashley, for coming on. Hopefully, this was like a nice feel good. I know we had some heavy moments in the beginning, but I think it's so important for us to just be real about it because that's the only way that people will then be inspired to either take action for themselves or have the conversations that need to be had so that they can go where they need to go. So thank you. Can you tell our dream drivers where they can find you on social? where they can connect with you, where they can hire you to make sure their websites look pretty too?
Yeah, so Rouse Like House, INC. That's where you'll find all the information about branding and marketing. Rouse Like House Interiors, that's going to give you the design stuff. And then Good Old Fashioned Lovers, that's going to give you the recipe to a very good old fashioned. We also host cocktail classes in Atlanta. So on that page, you can find some really great experiences that we host monthly. But yeah, check it all out. I do a lot of things, so I'm sure I can help you with something if you're interested.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you because you've inspired me. I think it's this idea that sometimes things have to change and be okay with where the change takes you. And then also sometimes you have to revisit what was always there. And I think it's a reminder for me, like ever since having kids, a kind of, navigating full-time work, still trying to keep the dream alive. Just a reminder of you saying, like, you're still here. I'm proud of you. And
Hmm.
for me, it's like knowing you might not be where this person is, but the work that you're doing is still important and your gift is still important. You've helped reaffirm that for me today. So thank you, Ashley.
And you've reaffirmed it for me. You're just as delightful now as you were 8 years ago. So I thank you. And yeah, keep going. You got something big here. Your time will come.
Do I? I'm just playing. It's like, it's the idea of, I think it's also the idea for me, like, no one can be you. And like, there's everybody doing podcasts, but I think the conversations that I'm able to have and how I'm able to make my guests feel when they leave an interview is something that I don't know. You've done other podcasts, so you may know more, but like, it's more about just the conversation and what somebody else is going to feel by what you were able to share with them. So,
Yeah, and you also have tenure. Don't forget that. You have
yeah.
tenure, and I think that's one thing that's easy to forget. Like you have skin in the game, and a lot of people
Yeah.
don't.
400 plus episodes. Like,
That's what
I
I
know how to
mean.
interview. I could make
That's what
anyone
I'm
talk to me.
saying.
Okay.
That's what I mean. And that's a big deal. And same with Trade Street. I was like, I lost something. And I'm like, you gained 10 years of how to run a business. You could write a book.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, you could write a book? You know what I mean? I'm like, you could do so much. I actually started writing a book towards the end of Trade Street. So,
You never
it's
know.
you never know what can happen. And so don't forget that you've got skin in the game. And um, yeah, anybody coming after you, they're gonna be looking at what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, so that's a wrap for this episode of Dreams and Drive. I hope that you enjoyed hearing Ashley's dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. If you guys enjoyed this episode, the best thing that you could do is share it with someone. Please tag someone, send a text, send an email. I count on you all to really pay episodes forward. There's so many nuggets of information in this episode that Ashley shared, and it was just so inspiring, so heartfelt. I really want to make sure as many people as possible hear about Ashley and all that she's doing now. Make sure you're following us at Dreams and Drive across all social media. And please, 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 if you want to be part of our email newsletter, you can sign up at dreamsanddrive.com/join. As always, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in the next episode. Bye, guys.